So today I'm going to talk about a new product I just bought for the van, made by SuperSprings. These are their line of SumoSprings. So these are kind of like an assistance to the suspension that you already have on your van. So this is the front end. It goes between the coils. It's not made of rubber, it's made out of polyurethane, same with the rear one. They kind of give you a little bit of a progressive increase in support for your vehicle's current suspension. Now there's no tools, there's no hardware. They're kind of two-sided. You have a deep groove, this is the bottom of the spring, and you have a shallower groove, that'll be the top of the spring. But there's no other hardware for this one, so that'll be an easy to install one. Now the rear ones, kind of the same deal. They're not made of rubber. They're going to replace the bump stop. They're a polyurethane. They increase in their support as they compress more, so they'll be soft at first and get harder. These are all the pieces they come with. Those are spacers. Give you the hardware. They also give you Loctite, a small amount, so you can use Loctite on them. There's different versions of this that are an increase in how much they can actually support you. You just have to be real with yourself on this. Yellow is the most supportive. If you have a van that is always loaded to the max, maybe go with yellow, and blue would be the softest. I went with the black because my van's somewhere in between those two. So let's get started. Let's do the front end first. Make sure you have good wheel chocks. You know, they're not expensive. Buy like heavy duty quality rubber wheel chocks. And then we'll get I'm gonna get a measurement on this, because from what I watched from other people's videos and what I've seen, it looks like the front springs actually give you like a little bit of lift, just a small amount. So let's see where we're sitting. We're somewhere between a quarter, 30 and a quarter, and 30 and a half. Not quite to the half mark. Yeah, just under a half. So now let's get started. Let's put this spring in. I'll show you what to do. First, we need to jack the vehicle up. So our jack point is underneath the driver passenger doors. It's that crossbar. So I have the jack under there to lift the van. You want to jack it till the tire is just off the ground. That way the suspension has the most, like, it's open the most you can put stuff in. Put a jack stand. I have it on that frame bar right there, just to be safe. I'm not going to be under the van, but I could still really hurt my arm if the van was to fall down. This is the spring we're going to mess with. There's not a whole lot of coils like in that photo. There's actually only 4 turns in it. So just taking some dish soap. I'm just using the one that already just sprays the suds. You just want to clean this off and make it slippery with the soap to be able to put the spring on. Like I said, no tools for this front one. The total install time of this is under 5 minutes per side. I'm not speeding this video up or nothing. I mean, making the video kind of slowed me down, but once this is clean, get the spring. The shallow side goes on the top, and the deep side goes on the bottom, the deep channel. You can see I can fit my thumb in there that way, but I can just barely put the thumb in, like, up on the top. So what I'm going to do, I'll spray a little bit of soap on this, and I'll spray a little bit more soap on the spring. I'm going to basically kind of wrap this around like a collar, and then I will place the bottom portion on first, the bottom groove, and then I'll just pop the top groove in. And then once I get this kind of situated, I'll move this up so you can see. This is real time. It only took, I think it's like a minute 90, or a minute 30, so 90 seconds to get this all on there. So I got the bottom and the top position just started. I haven't got the whole thing on quite yet, but then once you have it started on the bottom and the top and you have it kind of feeding in, you can just start to rotate it around the coil, rotate it up, and everything else will just pop into place. There we go. It's basically on. That's a piece of cake. So there's, like I said, there's only 4 coils here, so I'm just positioning it in this position right here, because the top part is in the same spot. So you just kind of want to try to center it in the spring, but our springs are obviously not very big. Some people might have holes drilled in these with a zip tie to zip tie it to your spring. This one did not, so I guess there's nothing to zip tie for me. Just looking at it, I'm starting to lower the jack. I want to make sure that it just stays in the springs as I lower. I'll just lower it like a little bit more, and you'll just see how it all tightens up. Now, one thing with the front and the rear springs, they offer 30% more support for the front specifically, 30% more support. But that does not mean you can load your van 30% more than what it is rated to. So this just helps your van cope with the weight, but it does not make it so your van can have more weight. So don't fall into that little trap. I hear some people say that in their YouTube channels. They don't actually increase your cargo carrying capacity. So here's the rear. This is the bump stop. So you can see it looks kind of like a dog toy. It's a piece of rubber. It hangs out. It's meant to just, if you hit a big bump, it's meant to catch your drive shaft before any damage could happen. It's going to add like a little bit of a stop to the travel of that. Before you take anything apart, before you jack anything up, you need to measure the distance between the frame where the bump stop is attached, including its metal bracket, and there's a little plate that catches the bump stop if it was a smash up against it. So we're at just shy of 6 inches, so 5 3/4. Well, you can almost call it 6. Here's the instructions that they include with you. So they'll tell you to add spacers to make it 1/2 inch to 1 inch less than what you just measured. So we measured about 6. You have to always use this metal spacer, no matter what. So with that metal spacer, we are at 5 1/4. And like we were saying, or like I was saying, we were just shy of 6 inches total. So 5 1/4, totally fine. This should have the right amount of gap for us. We don't want it always touching. We want like a little bit of travel before this engages. So now I'm jacking mine up on the back with using the hitch. I'm going to leave the jack stand attached, and then I'm going to leave the jack attached, and then I have 2 jack stands as well. So this way there's like 3 points kind of securing it. It's kind of narrow right there, but I can't jack it up by the actual like jacking point because I need the tires to hang to the ground. There's the bump stop. Ours is pretty easy to take off. You don't need any tools. You just need a little bit of muscle. You're going to twist and pop it out on one side. That was it. And now we're left with this like securing plate. It has a screw or it has a bolt in it. So we'll have to take that out. I'll kind of speed it up. You don't have a whole lot of wiggle room with your wrench, so it's a lot of time. That was it. And let's just look at like the tools that we have to use for this one. So this is the securing plate for the bump stop. I'm trying to remember, I think this was a 1/2 inch socket. Yeah, 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch socket to remove this bolt. No problem, other than you just don't have a whole lot of space for movement, so it's just like a lot of wrenching back and forth, but eventually it'll come out. It was no Loctite on it, so it came out pretty easy actually. This is going to be the SumoSpring. And then the SumoSpring will need an 11/16 socket set. Place it in. You get 2 lengths of screws. I'm using the shorter screw because I didn't need to use any spacers on mine. Here's that metal plate. It has to go on, so don't forget about that. Just a comparison between the SumoSpring and the bump stop. The bump stop really does look like a dog toy. And it's made of rubber. Over time, the bump stop will degrade. It'll get dried, cracked, and these are still fairly new, so they still look fairly decent. You can see how the size difference between the two. Now getting it installed, just don't forget the Loctite that they give you. It's got a little bit of Loctite on the end threads right there. And then it'll just go back in the same place where the bump stop came out. Really not too hard other than just space. So once you get it threaded up, I think they said 20 foot-pounds on the torque. For this, I'm just doing it just like fairly tight, but nothing crazy. The Loctite's going to help hold it on too. I don't want to overdo it. The reason I went with this was I wanted to reduce the sway in the back, but I can't put a sway bar on this van without drilling a hole. So now that's finished, let's get take the jack stands out. So I gotta lift the van up off the jack stands first. You can see I had the van lifted just to the point where the tires were starting to leave the ground in the back. That way you have the most room to work. So with the jack stands out of the way, then we will lower the van and then remove the jack. See it just compressing, getting closer and closer. And then just to eyeball our work, when we look at it, we do have a small space between the drive shaft and the SumoSpring. So that's good. That's exactly what we want. So now driving. I've had these on here for a month now, and I really like the front ones. If you're gonna buy anything, buy the front. So see there's a big dip right here as I leave this parking lot. Hardly anything. The front hardly took a dive. Before, when you'd go over a bump like that, the front end dives lower and then it has to spring back up, but the SumoSprings really helped it. And as I'm coming around, there's some train tracks right here. This was one of the first things that you notice when you put them on. Just smooth. It just helped the van not take a dive in the cracks. Another good point with these is when you're making a turn, the van doesn't have the roll side to side anymore. It stays basically level. So it drives a lot more like a car than it does a high top van with super weighed down. And then as I'm driving on the highway, I have a pretty good crosswind. You can see that flag on that left center side. The wind's blowing straight across. The sway from the wind blowing the van side to side is reduced quite a bit. I'm not going to say it's totally gone, but it is reduced significantly. So I'm very pleased with these. If you're going to buy one thing, I'd buy the front first. And if you like those, then add the rear. The front was the biggest change, especially going over bumps. But I'm very happy with this purchase. I'll leave a link at the end. I bought them from Amazon, so you get those Amazon gift cards or whatever. It's a good thing to spend it on. And then just to look at it, we really did gain like a quarter of an inch after driving. Pretty crazy. I do not miss these tires. I'm glad the new tires are on by now. So that's it for this video. Like and subscribe for more content, and thanks for watching.